Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm creating a scene with die cuts using some new products from the My Favourite Things June 2019 release. So I'm going to start off by creating my puppy. This is the new Puppy Love Die-namics set from MFT. It's absolutely adorable, so you can create your own puppy and all of the items sort of cut out individually, so like the head and the body and the ears and everything like that. So it's really good because you can make your own sort of design out of it. So what I tend to do with die cuts like this is I cut them from coloured cardstock and then I add inking over the top. And the inking just helps to create some dimension and make them not look so flat. So I've cut out the bulk of my puppy with Desert Storm cardstock. And here I'm adding on some distress ink, and this is in Vintage Photo. And I'm using a blending brush here. I find that it works quite well with these little die cuts. And I do just use some memo tape just to make sure that my fingers sort of aren't getting in the ink as well. Just to sort of hold them in place. And as the ink dries, it kind of smooths out a bit, but I'm not too concerned if it's kind of a little bit rough because puppies have some sort of fur obviously, and so it just adds to the kind of look of the puppy. So just adding those onto the outside, mainly to the outside portions and where it's going to be darkest on the puppy. And then I do find that I wanted a little bit more of a dark colour onto the head and the body. So I do go back in and add some Gathered Twigs Distress ink to those as well. And as you can see, there is the tail there at the top. I did add some ink to that, but I found out in the end that it didn't really work with the design of my image. But I do just want you to know that there is a tail available if you want to use it. So I've cut out some of the elements here that are going to layer on the top with some ivory cardstock. And I first went in with the antique linen distress ink and found that it wasn't quite dark enough. So now I'm using the residual ink from the other ink blending just to add a bit more darkness to those. And for the blending tool, I just rub that on a microfiber cloth just to get rid of the excess ink, and then I wash that afterwards. And this is the Sponge Sugar Distress ink, and I'm just adding that onto the areas that I want to be pink. So now I'm going to layer all of my die cuts up together. So I just used my fingernail there just to get rid of the excess cardstock that sort of hangs around after die cutting. That happens with all dies. So I like to try and get rid of that as much as I can. And I'm just going to layer up these elements using some on point precision glue. And what I really love about this, especially the head and the body, they have some embossed lines so you can see exactly where you need to add the other sort of die cuts on top. So I cut the eyes there from some black licorice cardstock and just using my jewel picker here just to place them down. And just going to get rid of the excess glue off the back of that nose there with some, just to kind of dab that onto some paper, and it just gets rid of any of the excess. And here are the little paw prints. They're just absolutely adorable. So I used the sponge sugar for those, and just adding on the tummy there as well, just using tweezers just to help me out. And what I like about these die cuts is you can kind of have the arms and the ears positioned any which way you want to. So I kind of did the ears quite floppy at the side of the head, but you could add them a bit higher up if you wanted to. So just like I said, sticking all that down with that liquid glue. And then I'm going to figure out how I want them to be stuck onto the card a bit later. So now I'm going to work on my background, and I wanted to have a sky in the background and have the puppy sitting on some grass. So I want some blue in the background, but I want it to be fairly subtle. So I'm using tumbled glass distress ink, and I'm just adding this onto the front panel of my card base, again with the blending brush. I find that the brushes work quite well if you want a light layer of colour, but this is taking me some time. I'm using quite a lot of layers here, so I do go in with Broken China distress ink just to darken that slightly, but I still want it to be fairly light because I want to add some clouds over the top. So I'm using the Cloud Stencil here, and again the same colours of the distress ink, the Tumbled Glass and the Broken China, and I'm just adding some very subtle clouds onto the back here. It's so subtle that you can barely see it on camera. I do apologise apologise for that, but even in real life it really is quite subtle as well. I'm going to add some die cut clouds over the top, and so I didn't really want them competing with each other, but I still wanted that sort of subtle added interest onto that ink blending. So I'm using the different sides of the stencil here, just rotating it as I go down the card panel, or the card base I should say. I'm doing it directly on the card base here. And then I've got my grass pieces here at the bottom, and I've cut those with the Grassy Fields Dynamics. So it just cuts the top of the sort of layer here. And so I can do them at two different heights because I want to have a piece at the back and then a piece at the front. Again, just adds a bit of dimension to the card. And I'm inking these up with Mode Lawn Distress ink, just adding again a bit more interest, adds a bit of dimension to the flat die cuts. And I've placed my first one there on the bottom of my card base, and I can just place the other one on top. And I just use some tape runner for that, and then I can cut off the excess from either side. And then I'm going to add the body of my puppy down here. Again, I'm using some tape runner for that. And I just want to stick that in between the two pieces of the grass, just so that he looks like he's definitely sitting in the grass and not on the top. So just placing that down, and then I can place the arms in here. And this is where I figured out that I didn't want the tail because of how I've placed the arms. I didn't think you would see it very well, so as I said, I left that off. And what I've done here is I've stuck them down all flat, and then I'm going to stick the head on top with some dimension, and I'm just using some foam tape for that. And I'm going to have it hanging off the edge of the card base. So the card base is 4 inches in width and 5 1/4 inches in height, and that's so that I can have that head hanging off, but it's still going to fit in a standard sized envelope. So now I'm going to work on the clouds, which like I said, I was going to add on top of that background here. I really like these. These are the new Cute Cloud Outline Dynamics. And what I really love is that you kind of get a 2-for-1 here. So you get the outline as intended, but you also get the middle portion as well, which is really nice. So you could maybe cut them from 2 different types of cardstock, or you could add vellum on the inside, which would be really nice. But I'm just using those outlines here, again, just to add a bit of interest onto that background. And I'm just dabbing those in some glue. They're very thin, so I found that was the easiest way to adhere them. And then I can just cut off the excess of that one at the side. Next, I can figure out where my head is going to go of the puppy, and then I'm just sticking down my sentiment here. I have white heat embossed that. That is from the Birdie Brown Greetings Galore. I just stamped that with some Versamark ink and heat embossed that onto some black licorice cardstock. Cut that out, and like I said, just stuck that down with some foam tape. And then I can add the head of the puppy on top, and I just did it at a slight angle. I just thought it'd look quite cute that way. And then I'm going to add some interest here with some white gel pen. Again, I do apologise for my head getting in the way here. I haven't made videos for quite some time, and I think I completely forgot that the camera was on, so I do apologise. But I'm just adding some lines just for some highlights here, just on the kind of like snout of the puppy. Do they have snouts? And then the head and also the tummy there as well. And then I'm going to add some crystal glaze onto the eyes and also onto the nose. It just gives some nice shine to those. And then I can use my pokey tool just to move that around, get that right onto the edges of the die cuts. And that is the card finished for today. I absolutely adore this cute little puppy. I love their huge heads of these little animals. And like I said, you can kind of move them in any which way. I thought that the arm sort of out would work really well with the sentiment of the hugs. He kind of looks like he's going in for a hug, which is really cute. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.